Hey everyone, we survived winter. It's springtime.
Is it officially?
I
When
love
does springtime
spring.
actually start?
Does it start when daylight saving starts? Or
No.
Is that okay? That was
No, it
terrible.
doesn't.
That was a
It
terrible
starts on the
take.
21st of something.
Oh really?
It's whatever the groundhog said. I almost said gopher. That would have been embarrassing.
That doesn't
groundhog.
determine
That
doesn't
spring.
No, it
Yeah.
yes,
That
it
determines
does.
how long
It
winter
determines how long
goes.
winter
That's
goes.
fake.
Grace.
Grace,
fake.
you brought up two takes I don't
That's
agree
fake.
with. Daylight saving
You don't
starts when
believe in the
spring
groundhog?
starts.
No, and I stopped believing him this year. This is my first year that I stopped believing in him. I literally told someone that today. I'm done believing in the groundhog. He's not real.
I believe in
Last
the
year you
groundhog.
did though.
Last year I did, but also that's not what determines spring. There's a date that spring happens. Like my birthday is the last day of summer every year, September 21st. Fall starts on September 22nd.
Yeah, and the groundhog determines the last
It
day
does.
of winter.
I don't know
every
who
year.
you're talking to.
I can't do this right now. Welcome to This Is Kingdom, a good news brand podcast. This is great.
This is Tal.
This is TJ.
This is Hollis.
And this week we're talking about Ye Are My Friends by Elder Buckner.
Okay, so I was reading in the Book of Mormon, just looking at the story between Boren and Moroni, right? Where they have
It's a wild story.
It's a wild
Every time I read
story.
it, I'm like, dang.
yeah, there's like oh, are they beefing? It's like, oh no, I don't think so. But it's like, oh, I don't know. And it's wild. Okay. But just to recap a little bit, right? You got Moroni, and they're kind of suffering and they're struggling and they're going to battle, but they feel like they're not really getting support from Boren, from the king and the people. And so Moroni starts kind of, getting kind of fired up, sends this letter, kind of chewing Boren out a little bit in
It's
the
an
letter.
intense letter.
And it's interesting because, I'll share that later. Anyway, sends a letter, Pahoran gets it, and then he gets even more mad and writes a whole another letter that's like where he's super angry and just says, no, I'm just kidding. That doesn't happen. Pahoran takes it, and Pahoran has a opportunity to get kind of angry or get fired up. Because on Pahoran's side, right, they have a tough situation going on as well. They have people rebelling against them and people trying to attack them, and he actually needs help as well. And so he could have been like, getting upset at Moroni or whatever. But anyway, he takes this moment to slow down, and he writes a letter back, basically thanking Moroni and just kind of explaining his situation and just showing tons of love. And then Moroni sends something back and sends tons of love, and it's great. But the thing that hit me was, when Moroni sent his first letter, it says in there, he mentions like trusting God and loving God in the letter, which is so interesting because he says that, and then he says all these things that he's heated up about. And the thing that the Spirit kind of whispered to me as I was reading and listening was like, why didn't God God could have just told Moroni, like, hey, like, this is what's going on with Boren, like, just before you send this letter, but God didn't do that. God allowed Moroni to feel his feelings and to send his thing. And then God allowed Pahoran to turn around and feel his feelings and make a decision and respond with love, which I think would have, built that connection and built that relationship even more, because they chose love, right? They chose connection. They chose open communication. And this made me think of one of my best friends. Growing up, he was one of my best friends. We would hang out, Sunday dinner, just family friends, hang out at school, sports together, everything. And we were just like besties for the resties. It was cute. It was awesome. And we had this falling out in high school. There were some things that happened. One of us broke the bro code. It might've been me. Okay.
TJ.
I was an idiot, man, in high school. Okay. I was crazy. We were both crazy, but anyway, we had kind of a falling out. We separated schools, and we kind of, we just had some kind of contention and kind of beef in that way. And then we didn't talk for years. We both went on our missions. And there was this point where I was back from my mission and he was back from his. And I had this moment where I was like, man, like, I wonder if I should like reach out to him. And I was like, oh no, like, what's done is done. Let's just move forward. But what was so interesting was I realized, like, I have a choice, to reach out and to see what's going on and to see if there's anything there and see if we come together and break bread and everything. And we did. I hit him up and he came over and we had this long chat, and kind of made up and everything. And it's so crazy because, fast forward a little bit of time goes by, and now, like, we're, eating McDonald's, going to the temple, going to the gym.
That's TJ's highest level of bonding.
So true.
Not talking a temple, but also McDonald's for
It
TJ.
is, no, for
And-
real.
McDonald's and the
gym.
gym.
And the gym.
That's a good combo.
Yeah, especially on the same day.
Yeah, that's
McDonald's
crazy.
and temple in the morning. It's crazy. But anyway, and then fast forward a few years, right? I'm in his wedding line and he's in my wedding line. And it was just so special that we were able to rebuild our connection and our friendship. And I can't help but be grateful to God that, God didn't come in and whisper to him or whisper to me like, hey, like actually this is going on. Like you should say this and this and this. But God like allowed us to make the decision to like come together and like rebuild that bond. And because of that, God was able to bless us with a lot of other great experiences and memories and everything. And I just think it's special that in life, something you got to remember about God is that he's going to let certain things happen. He's not going to tell you every single thing. He's not going to guide you through every single situation with your relationships, but he allows you to take a step back and to make a choice how you're going to respond. And then you get to kind of see how that plays out and see what he has in store for you, depending on if you choose him and if you respond with love and respond with Christ-like love, right?
I love that. Honestly, what you said reminds me of one of my favorite books. There's 3 books that have changed me.
Whoa.
There is
Give us all
the
3.
Book of Mormon, of
The
course,
Book of Mormon.
the Bible,
Good lead up.
and Man's Search for Meaning, and then Green Lights by Matthew McConaughey, okay? Those 4 books. But I want to...
Great price. Come on.
I'm not like Andy Reid, all right? Not the Pearl of Great Price. But anyways, Man's Search for Meaning is so good. And what TJ was just throwing down on reminds me of a concept from there that's so good. It's about this survivor of the Holocaust, actually. And he talks about how those people there in those camps had absolutely nothing. And he learned that you can take everything from a man or woman except one thing, and that's the ability to choose. It's someone's agency. And he continues to talk about how there, between things that happen in our life and things and how we respond, there's a sacred space in the middle of how we choose to react. And I feel like just like what TJ was saying, there are going to be things that happen in your life, in your relationships with your friends, things that happen in life, in your circumstances of life. And you have this ability to choose how you respond to that situation. And it reminds me of those 2 polar opposite reactions of Laman and Lemuel and Nephi. When those things happen in these relationships, Laman and Lemuel murmur. That's what they do. They murmur. But Nephi sees those same exact situations and says, actually, I am highly favored of the Lord, and I'm going to respond well to the situation. I'm going to choose to improve my relationship with God because I know who my anchor is. And I think that's really cool that we can always choose how we respond to situations.
I love it, y'all. I love it. And the whole time listening, I'm like, I want to get really practical with this. And I was listening to your story about, I guess not your story, but the story you were telling about Captain Moroni and Boren. And I was like, man, we don't really write letters anymore. Like maybe we should, because it's kind of fun when you get a letter in the mail. I'm gonna write y'all a letter. It's gonna be fun.
I love that.
Okay.
That's
I'm holding
I'll
you
write
to
you
that.
Words
But
of
we don't really do
affirmation.
that.
I love that.
We don't really do that, but we do text so much. We spend so much time texting. Grace spends even more time texting now because it takes her so long on her flip phone to
That's
bust them
true.
all out.
She's
It
got,
is true.
she's got really
100%
fast,
true.
actually.
I kind of cook. I
You
kind of
do
cook.
cook.
But I was thinking of like the amount of times, I mean, and not a crazy amount, depending on where you're at, where your relationships are at in your life, that we get a text that maybe comes at us like that letter came at Boren. We get a text that maybe comes across aggressive, or maybe is uninformed, or maybe is more accusatory than it should be. And I think a lot of times our instant reaction is we want to fire back, and we want to tell them all the reasons they're wrong, and we want to bring it to them. You know what I mean? But just listening to you guys, I'm like, man, in that moment, you have a choice. And you get to decide, am I just going to spit back what was thrown at me, or am I going to respond in a higher and holier way? Am I going to respond assuming the best intentions? Am I going to respond in a way that expresses love and respect to that person? And it's also clear, right? But Boren didn't just like give in and say, oh yeah, I'm an idiot, right? He's like, no, like, let me explain. But it just makes me in every relationship to want to take that moment to pause and to realize I get to choose right now and respond in the way that Christ would in that moment.
This might be too niche of a circumstance because that's crazy that you just brought that up, Talon, because legit that happened to me this week. No, and I'm not.
I
even
actually
kidding
think
you.
it's fairly common.
I think it's fairly.
No, yeah, but that was really like, listen, you're not gonna believe this because Because literally this week,
Grace is like, because I cussed her out after she said it too.
She got what she deserved.
And she was slow too.
on this, I'm like, no, because I actually, I started emailing because the flip phone, if it's like going to be something long, I do emails. And all my friends know that. And one of my friends that we've just kind of been like having like a little bit like of a like rockier time in our friendship. I was out of town this past weekend and I got an email from her randomly. And I like clicked open and it was like a Word document. And it was just kind of like her like kind of spilling her feelings about like kind of where our friendship has been for like the past 6 months. And I like looked through and I read it. And like there was some things that like kind of like caught me off guard. Like there was like a lot of resolution, but like it was like one of those moments that I like read it and there was things that I instantly wanted to reply and say. And the first thing the Spirit told me was, you do not need to rush a response. And
Wait, that's so deep.
yeah,
I need to like write that down. Say that one more time.
you don't need to rush a response.
That's so good.
And I just realized, like, I saw the email and I was out of town and I was in the middle of New York, which is like the rushiest city ever. And I just remember thinking the whole entire time, like, it would come into my mind and I would just say that, like, I don't need to rush my response. If I'm not going to respond right now in a healthy way, if I'm not going to respond in a way that Jesus would right now, why would I care to respond?
You can wait.
You don't need to hurry it. And what happened is, honestly, I waited days and days and days. Like, it was like 5 days later, which like maybe like in your head, you're like, that's not nice. Like, not nice to make him wait. And I'm like, well, it would have really been like less nice if I said something rude or if I said something rash or if I said something that I didn't really mean. And I like remember writing, like I like wrote an email back because like it's 2002 for me right now in my life. And I wrote the email back and I remember as I was writing it, things would come to my mind that I never would have had the ability to say if I was typing that response back in a subway or if I was typing that response back before going to bed after a full day in New York City. I never would have thought that through. And I just think that maybe that is a really good thing to remember is Jesus never rushed anything. He was never rushed. You can read that in scripture. And now that I said it out loud, I was trying to go back and see if that's actually true, but I am thinking of several different moments
Think
in the
about the
story
woman
of
caught in
Jesus.
adultery, right? They throw him at her feet and at his feet, and what does he do? He stops and he just takes a second to draw in the sand.
Yeah.
The daughter that was dying, and he was on the way to the daughter, and the woman touched his robe in the middle of the streets. He should have been in a rush.
He was
In
on a
our
mission.
heads-
He was going somewhere
yeah.
important.
In our heads, he should have been in a rush, and he still wasn't. And I just think that you are never your best self when you are rushed. You are never your best self when you are in a hurry. And I think that's true in relationships, that you don't need to rush a response. You don't need to be in a hurry to resolve something. Sometimes it takes time.
Oh, that's
It,
so
it
good.
applies to everything. I've been thinking about like even driving too, like running late to work because that's usually been
Yeah.
my weakness lately.
Yeah.
But just like
Whenever you're rushing to drive
Yeah.
somewhere and someone cuts you off,
I don't really have road rage when I'm chill, when I'm
Yeah.
not in a rush. I'm like, someone cuts me off. I'm like, cool, bro. Maybe
Come
you're going
on
to the
in.
hospital.
Yeah.
You need to go to the bathroom. Cool, it's good. Go ahead, brother. But when you're in that rush though, I feel like Satan just thrives in that rush because he thrives in the contention and the quick reactions and the
good.
quick emotions, right? But
That's
if we could take a
real
step back,
good.
take a breath, and make a real choice with our spirit, with our spiritual self, not just our natural man, right?
Well, and this is what I'll say with it too is I hope everyone tries to do better with this and tries to rush less. I already know probably this week we're all going to rush and we're all going to react in a way that we're not happy about. And the same principle applies. You have a choice of how you respond, right? Let's say you give a rushed response that's not good. I literally did it today. And then you have that choice after of, am I going to act like it's no big deal? Am I just going to justify myself? Or am I just going to step back and apologize and say, oh, that's not actually me. I'm sorry about that.
Well, and it really does make me want to stop. And I want to study this week, actually, because it makes me want to stop and wonder. I wonder if the reason Jesus had the capability of treating people as well as he did is because he was never hurried in a relationship. He was never rushed in a relationship. And I wonder if that would also give me the ability to treat people better, is if I paused and said, wait, I don't want to rush this anymore. I want to be really intentional. I want to be really thoughtful. I want to be very spirit-led. And the way to do that is to slow things down.
I don't want anything but you. You're more than every dream come true. All of the things I thought I wanted don't come close to knowing you. Now that I'm yours and you are mine, our love is the secret that I find. I'll spend forever in the pleasure I found looking in your eyes. Give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus, give me Jesus. You can have all this world. You can have all this world. Give me Jesus.
See you next week.